Okay, I've been going back over my notes and adding additional discoveries, and I think I may have pieced together what Zechariah Sitchen was so close to figuring out that fits the pieces of the puzzle together here. My research was put together here on my channel while searching for a way to unlock the 7 seals of God, which I had come to believe was a story from our ancestors that were here before the known recorded texts that told a story of an ancient enemy and his defeat, along with the methods in which he was defeated that we had hidden from ourselves so that the world would forget about that ancient enemy and hopefully disappear in the sands of time, I guess was their idea. Anticipating the return of this enemy as it was foretold, I embarked on a journey to piece this lost tale back together as it had been separated into 7 different cultural legends by the ones who had defeated this enemy. It wasn't until I had almost finished putting this all together that people began to mention Sitchen's name and that my work seemed to line up with his research. I had heard his name but didn't pay any attention to it because I was looking for earthly derived legends, not legends of alien worlds, although many times the subject came back to the topic but nothing that seemed credible. Before anything else, let me first say that it is vital to find the full story by completely ignoring the Sumerian history at first, as it seems to have been placed as an intentional trap for those seeking this same path. Only when the tale is pieced together can you add the Sumerian history and see its purpose for being as false as we have discovered in the past, which had Sitchen's theories denounced as valid because of the trap it was intended to be. Now, to save time being allowed to give those that keep these secrets hidden the time they need to counteract this information with their generated deceptions, I shall simply refer you to my previous videos on this subject scattered throughout my 600 video library that keeps them from turning my own works against me, and shall simply add the key puzzle piece that Sitchen had come so close to until he was undermined by his works in the way I just described. The story picks up in a temple in Ecuador that held these stone keys to a pyramid that no one had been able to figure out the purpose for, which I shall translate from this tablet on your screen here by using the language translations of the other 7 tablets techniques. Here we find a tale that tells of the Nephilim, who came into the world at a time just after our victory over the ones who had enslaved us with the help of 7 other species that had been enslaved to them as well. That after our victory and they all had departed back into the heavens, that we had gathered together what technology they had left and designed our own Anunnaki god technology, as that the ones we referred to as the gods, were actually enslaved humans they had abducted and used their technology to create augmented superhumans that held the whips and enforced their control over us. They were the mining pit foremans and chiefs of multiple villages in certain regions. However, after they left and the Anunnaki gods were freed, we discovered a way of making our own gods and even had built an entire temple, just like theirs, with the help of the former Anunnaki, who all knew how to do these things as they had done so for ages for them. With this temple we began making the Nephilim race of augmented gods without any master or owner to control them, and they became their guardians and heroes to the people around them, eventually rising to the status of being like benevolent gods. Then one day a representative of the ones who helped free us returned to see what we had built with the technology left here, and jealousy had entered his heart to see the tranquil world that was in harmony with the hardware that his species and others had deemed the source of their world's corruption. Loathing set in, and this representative, Satan, who is not described as being a cherubim but more like a scout or intelligence liaison in a more modern image of military ranks comparison, and he sought to turn our once allies against us for our use of the technology, depicted here as magic that was deemed forbidden because of the effect it had in corrupting the ways of their people. And so the once unified people who held the ability to possess the technology in peace were scattered, and all they had built with that technology was torn down and destroyed by the ones we once praised as our divine saviors. It also lists reference to magic's first origins, the art of elemental spellcraft, having come from one of those who visited this world in those times, when angels walked with man on the earth. That it was originally used for healing purposes, sleep-inducing technology for transport, and other mentally based effects, as well as music that was a part of the mental conditioning process to calm the biometric outputs to reduce shock and fear. I think, as it is represented by an image of Yaldabaoth. It looks like perched over a man with his hands covering his head. The story goes on that all these things were taken from man and the watchers placed over man to ensure we did not regain control of the forbidden things. But then it says that the Nephilim had learned of the scouts coming and had locked away the technology of the true temple, sealed with the 7 keys, somewhere hidden away in a secret realm and guarded by the serpent men, the Naga, deep underground, that held a hidden stargate taken from the ones that had enslaved us, and we were given coordinates, 15 symbols that lead to the planet the Naga held secret and called Nagaloka, that was then held beneath the Temple of Atlantis but was destroyed when it sank into the sea, forever separating us from the humanity that was still on that world. And the tale pretty much ends there. The last part was kinda hazy as bits of the information was missing and I had to add the assumed connections to finish the story. So this thing, this Satan, is depicted as the demiurge image in his representation here, but then expands into other images smaller than him and looks like the 7 archons, with him being represented as the pyramid's eye above them, each with a beam of light and a sphere around their heads, one of them being a man with a bird head and a book in one hand and a scepter in the other that looks like Thoth, but depicted with that sphere of light around his head. This is why I said to withhold the Sumerian texts from the rest of the story, because putting it all together with this makes it seem like he was under the control of this demiurge watcher. Now going into the legacy of the struggles that have occurred to try and uncover the secrets held not just within this tale but the tablet that is said to hold the location of this temple and other lost objects that have been long sought after by the Illuminati, who are listed as long-time seekers of these secrets and their meanings, and have used what they have uncovered so far to ensure their order's prolonged presence throughout time as they hunt for more clues to ensure their order's control over the world. That it is this figure of Satan that they hold is the illuminated one that they seek to subdue and bind control over it, as he would surely rise against them and destroy that which they have built from this technology that he has been made to ensure the destruction of and continue the primitive wisdom of man as prisoners on their own. Now going over other compiled information pertaining to the source or beginning of this conflict between species, it seems that there are records and other accounts of other species' beliefs that this first civilization had developed that long before their species came to be there were those not of our known time or space that existed beyond the edges of the universe, and that a war erupted between them in a similar fashion as had them in the end. This conflict had spread into our universe, where all sentient life forms were used as vessels, hosts through which they would continue their conflict. The main reason I am including this is because I have had and still have interactions with these beings that are mentioned in many different recorded events. They have been listed as their inertia and orchestrators behind many endeavors designed by many different species, including the design of Earth and their technology that made it possible. On one side of these beings you have the one known as Aeon, the universal, Alpha to the Omega, manifested into a single sentient consciousness that is what we call God, and the ones who come from the universal one consciousness that are in the form that is like Aeon, that he considers as his sons, called Eons, or what we would call angels. Usually this Aeon works through their technology when working on his private agendas, but does not like communicating to large groups of beings at one time and prefers to communicate on a singular basis. Then you have the other opposing beings who constantly make war and fuel the aggression behind their conflict that is known to many as the Osirians, or reptoid species within the Orion Nebula, that have long been referred to as the Draconians. Now many have made the mistake of referring to the ones from Orion as the Draconians, and that is when I discovered that even the satanic and occult grimoires have been altered, as the satanic unholy order beyond the world of man is now referred to as a Draconian culture and belief. However, I look back and remember the issue a few years ago involving Xi Jinping and his initiative to alter the religious texts to fit his communist regime's ideals, and believe that to be the source of these changes. That man is beginning to actually get on my nerves. But why? Does he know something about me, possibly in my studies as well as This unique ability I had mentioned with my writing that he may have learned of involving that Iron Mountain vault that he seeks to exploit by altering my research to fit the benefit of his regime by altering the religious texts towards his favor. But how, unless the Merkaba wheel that Hitler had tried to acquire control of is now in the hands of the Chinese after discovering the plans of their Bilderberg Foundation and Agenda 21, which got them targeted as the fall guy for their first phase of the agenda, global mass depopulation by use of a viral bioweapon? The plot thickens. These two forces of religion and science, they are one and the same, both aspects of the other, but they will not remain in balance with each other. So there must be a third aspect that must be included. One that will silence the chaos of one and satisfy that which is causing the other to continue the conflict brought about from the necessity that is caused by the other. Chaos and Uranus need an aspect that negates both aspects, which will allow life to flourish, because life cannot evolve and flourish with chaos or order present. Order restricts life's free flow and confines it to ideals and institutions. Chaos creates opulence and sin to consume life, scattering the flow of life and denying its evolution to become possible. I shall call this third aspect enlightenment, or in modern translation, common sense. This aspect of common sense will regulate the chaos, allowing it to be what it is but avoid the destruction it is capable of if left unregulated. Common sense also regulates the qualities of order that can be restrictive to life and blocks its flow, interfering with the flow of all life. In this all three shall exist in unison, and in unison shall it bear forth the fruit of life, from which all rivers shall flow. I have written this for you, Astaroth, for you have inspired this aspect of wisdom in I challenge your disbelief in God. Which one do you disbelieve exists? The God who is the intangible, because there are too many that seek to use positions like yours to find details to manipulate him. Since he knows about these heretics already, he chooses to remain intangible. So it doesn't matter how advanced technology gets, they will never be capable of proving definitively that he exists, when it comes to the masses. However, individually, he can be found. That is why they made the path to faith. While seeking to find your faith, it is encouraged that you question him. You speak of the God of the misrepresented image of the church. You will find little truth there. What truth was given to them has been altered by men with self-designed agendas. I speak on my side of my opinion from what occurred during my near-death experience while I was in a coma. During that time I was in his presence a lot and have come to know him well. I too questioned him when I was told I was in the presence of the Lord of Lords, King of Kings. My reply was, who's king? When I was told that I should exalt him, I asked, why? When I was told to swear my allegiance to him, I said, why? How do I know what you say is true? I know nothing of you and just met you a moment ago. I cannot honestly call you those things without knowing your heart first. Until then, I'm sorry, but I just can't. This caused a murmur among the angels, but none could deny the wisdom in my reasons. One angel spoke up and said, there are many deceivers and false prophets out there. They were warned to be cautious. And so that was allowed to not be seen or judged against me as disrespectful. So you see, if you've experienced a different scenario than what you don't believe is real, and in that aspect you're right. To find my loyalty and unquestionable faith in him, I had to take a journey that led me to see the machinations of the universe around us. The truth of his heart lay in every aspect of his design, just like an artist. The artist's true self is evident in his paintings. Now, to correct your view of who are you or any to question God, well, you need to realize the situation that led you to be in the position you are at that time. You are the one who came seeking answers from him, so indeed who are you to question him when your reasons that brought you before him was to seek answers, not question his answers he provides you. There are many zealots out there who try to speak for him when many of them forget that they know very little about him. That is all anyone is allowed to know, for none may look upon the face of God.